Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to yet another exciting content on Technovation. The content for this evening is going to be a little different. Now, for those of you who have been following me for the last 12 months or so, I generally try to bring problem statements from the world of data engineering, solve those problem statements for you, write about it and create demos, working sessions about those problem statements, right? Now for today, I'm not going to talk about any problem statement. I'm going to talk about an observation. An observation which I find is really important, and that is the reason I'm trying to bring that observation to you. Now I believe most of you will agree to my point of view. However, not necessarily everybody will agree, right? You might have a counter opinion. I would definitely request you to share your thoughts in the comment section, and I would be more than happy to read about it. Cool. Let's head over to the main section and let's talk about the actual content. Well, before I go over there, a gentle reminder and a humble request. If you're new to this channel, please consider subscribing so that you can stay tuned to all the latest and greatest updates that I keep bringing to you from the world of data engineering. And if you truly like this kind of video, consider liking it. It serves as a great motivation for young content developers like me. Cool. Let's head over to the main section. Let me start by asking you a question. How many of you are software developers here? I'm sure everybody. And because you are a software developer, you have hit on the play button of this particular video. Now, as a software developer, you might be playing different other roles. You might be an architect, you might be a data analyst, you might be a data scientist, you might be a data governance expert. But at the end of the day, we are all software developers, right? Now, in my experience of around 16 or 17 years, I've used a lot of tools, a lot of IDEs. When I talk about IDEs, I'm talking about integrated development environments. We all know what IDEs. Now, my question to you is, think about what are the different type of IDEs that you have used and how many of them you have actually paid for. While I give you some time to think about your answers, let me talk about my experience. Now, I started working as a data engineer. That means I was introduced to the world of Oracle using SQL+. That's the first IDE that I've ever used in my corporate life. Well, I can go back to my college days. I used to use Eclipse. I used to use NetBeans. Then when I hit into the industry, I started using PyCharm. I started using tools like, let's say, the famous Toad. We used to connect to Oracle using Toad. Toad was from Quest Software. I really don't know whether Toad is still there in the market or not. We had SQL developers, we had DB visualizers, right? Now, all these tools are kind of independent software units or independent software tools, I can call them, right? Now, they had a free version and they had a paid version as well. Now, the free versions are definitely very popular among developers like me, while the paid versions had a little bit of security enhancements, blah blah, and they were very popular, or they are very popular among the industry. Now, the other type of IDEs are IDEs which are free, but then IDEs which are well integrated within your software. I'm talking about, let's say, Teradata. If you have logged into Teradata, Teradata comes with its own IDE within the Teradata software itself. You don't have to, I don't know whether you can connect to Teradata using external IDEs or not. Maybe yes, but you're not dependent on any external IDEs because the tool itself comes with its own IDE. If you're using Oracle, Oracle comes with SQL+. You can connect to Oracle using SQL Developer as well. If you're using SQL Server comes with its own SQL Server Management Studio, right? Do you pay for it? Definitely not. Let's say Oracle, or let's say Oracle ERP, let's say SAP, let's say ServiceNow, Salesforce. all of them comes with their own integrated IDEs. Do you pay for it? No, definitely not, because they are a software provider. If you as a human, as a human have to interact with their software, you have to use their IDE, right? That's the reason they don't ask you to pay for it. You pay for the software usage. Fast forward maybe 10-15 years down the line, around 2015 and 16, there came the world of notebooks. Our famous Jupyter notebook was born right then. It's free. It was free. I don't know whether it will be free or not. I'm sure it will be free because it is from an open source foundation. Jupyter notebooks. All of us love using Jupyter notebooks. You can write Python, Scala, SQL, maybe R as well, right? You can use Jupyter notebooks for multiple different usage. Notebooks are very, very popular because it helps you to execute line by line and see the results line by line in a data frame style operation, right? Now, let's talk about Databricks. Databricks also has its own notebook. Do you pay for that notebook? No. The runtime of the notebook is free for you. The software of the notebook is free for you. What you pay for is the actual compute that you use to churn your data. Coming to Snowflake. Snowflake notebooks are a little different, and that is where I'm going to focus on today. So if you look at Snowflake, Snowflake IDEs have always been free, right? I started using Snowflake maybe sometime around the year 2019. In 2019, Snowflake had a UI which they used to call the classic UI. It was free. It had the SQL worksheets. It was free. Fast forward, maybe around 2021 end or 2022, Snowflake launched Snowsight. We use Snowsight as well today. Snowsight is free because Snowsight is the only point of interaction between, or the medium of interaction between humans and Snowflake. Snowflake supports two types of worksheets today, Python worksheets and SQL worksheets. Both of them are free. How about notebooks? Now, notebooks are also integrated into Snowsight, but the runtime of notebook is not free. And that is where I'm going to put my focus today. So I'm going to take you through a Medium article which I had written a week ago. It got a lot of attention and I thought that, why not talk about it in detail. I'm going to present certain facts, help you understand how exactly Snowflake is marketing notebooks to you. Because today if you go to any notebook or any Snowflake videos, whether it is on the Snowflake YouTube channel or any Snowflake event, all their demos are written on notebooks. That means they are promoting notebooks. Well, notebooks are very, very good, but why do you ask your users to pay for your notebooks while you are not asking the users to pay for your worksheets? And let me tell you, you as a user or me as a user, we are not limited to use of Snowflake notebooks because Jupyter notebooks can connect to Snowflake and you can do exactly the same type of operations in your Jupyter notebooks. Well, Snowflake notebook gives you a little advantage because you can schedule your notebooks over there. It manages the Anaconda runtime for you as well. But then just for those benefits, is there a point that me as a software developer will start using Snowflake notebooks? I have a very strong opinion about it. Well, I'll take you to the next stage of the video where I'm going to go back to my screen and talk about the article and the facts that I have gathered for you. Thank you. See you in the next section.
The second part of the video takes you through an article which I had written on the 9th of Feb. And the article asks you a question: are you paying for your Snowflake IDE? As I had promised, let's look at some of the important facts, and the answer is within those facts. Snowflake, as of this writing, offers three types of browsers: the SQL worksheet and the Python worksheet. Both of them are a part of Snowsight. Now, well, notebooks are also a part of Snowsight, but I have a strong opinion about it. That is the reason I have not included notebooks as a part of Snowsight. Because while the first two are free, the runtime for the third one is not free. Even though the UI is well integrated within Snowsight, but then the behavior is very different to the first two. Let's look at the documentation. I think I've opened the documentation somewhere here. It gives you a detailed outline on the setup. It gives you a detailed outline on how to use it, some of the best practices, idle time settings, prerequisites, and I think private notebooks are about to come in. They're in the private preview. Yeah, it gives a fair amount of information. Now, I'm not going to go through the documentation. I'll leave that particular exercise to you as a reader, but then I'm going to articulate whatever I have understood from here and how is it going to affect your pocket. Let's go back. So, Snowflake notebook is nothing but a kernel process. Now, to run this particular notebook process, Snowflake needs a runtime. Snowflake very skillfully passes on the ownership of that particular runtime to you as an user. And as an user, you have two options to run that particular process. You can run it on a query warehouse, or you can run it on a separate warehouse. So what's a query warehouse? A query warehouse is nothing but a virtual warehouse. And even a notebook warehouse on the diagram, it all is also a virtual warehouse for which you have to pay. Now, so you have two options before you. You can run notebook as a separate virtual warehouse, which is as per the recommendation from Snowflake, and you can share this particular notebook warehouse among multiple developers to save your cost. Well, one point to note, if you run multiple notebook kernel processes on extra small warehouse, I'm sure there will be some developer experience, there will be some compromise on the developer experience, but okay, let me remove that compromise for this time being, and let's focus that you have a single developer working on it. So if you are a single developer working on it, the minimum cost that you will incur is around $35 per week. Now, how did I arrive at the calculation? So a developer typically works for 5 days a week, 9 hours a day. So that makes it 45 hours multiplied by 3. 3 is the dollar value for each credit on enterprise share of Snowflake, right? So this is the minimum cost that you have to pay. Now, how can you avoid this particular cost? You can very well get the job done through an open source Jupyter notebook which is installed on your laptop, right? The second part is run your notebook as a part of your query warehouse itself. Wherever your data processing is happening, please go ahead and run it. Sounds nice, right? You don't have to pay for a separate notebook warehouse, but then there's a big flaw to that particular approach. What is the flaw? Now, every query warehouse in Snowflake comes with auto suspend setting, and by default auto suspend setting, I think it is set to 10 minutes if I'm not wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, but then you can definitely alter the duration of your auto suspension. You can make it 1 minute, you can make it 120 minutes, or anything between that, right? Now, let's take a scenario where you are using a particular warehouse for, let's say, 30 seconds, and you have chosen the auto suspend to be a minute. So that means after your workload completes at the 30th minute, from the 31st minute, it waits for another 60 seconds. That means 1 minute for awaiting the next instruction. If it doesn't get the next instruction, it shuts it down, and thereby you save a lot of cost. Very fine, right? Now, the moment you run your notebook warehouse on your query warehouse, this entire assumption or this entire calculation goes for a toss, because the idle time setting for a notebook warehouse is much higher than a query warehouse. While the minimum query timeout for or the idle timeout for your query warehouse is set to 1 minute, for a notebook warehouse it is set to 15 minutes. So that means your notebook warehouse is going to issue a command called, I think they call it keep alive time or something like that. It keeps the query warehouse alive for a minimum period of 15 minutes. So that means even though as your administrator would have decided that, let's set the query auto suspension time to 1 minute, notebooks doesn't allow that to happen, right? And that is where the entire calculation of your credits per month is going to take a hit. Let's take a quick calculation. Let's say you are using a medium size standard warehouse which costs you 4 credits per hour, which equates to 4 into 3, that means $12 per hour of processing. So if you use a medium warehouse for an hour, you have to spend $12. Now, because you're cost conscious in a particular dummy scenario which I have taken, you have set the idle timeout to 2 minutes, right? Now, if you have mistakenly hosted the notebook runtime on this particular cluster, you are absolutely screwed, and I'm going to tell you how. The notebook keeps triggering an execute notebook command, which is nothing but a keep alive, to keep your query warehouse up and running. Now, this notebook idle runtime overrides your idle timeout of your warehouse, right? Now, if you take this calculation, which is again, it's like, if you have to pay for, if you have 1 minute of workload, that means you are actually paying for 60 cents. How did I arrive at the calculation? So $12 per hour divided by 60 multiplied by 1 plus 2 minutes. So first 1 minute is the time that you pay for your actual warehouse utilization. The rest 2 minutes is your idle time, because you have set your idle time as your 2 minutes. So you're paying for total 3 minutes multiplied by 12 divided by 60 minutes is your 0.60 cents. That's what you pay for 3 minutes of usage. However, if you run your notebook on this particular same warehouse, how much do you pay? It goes up to 12 divided by 60 multiplied by 15 minutes. So this entire 3 minutes is dragged on to 15 minutes and you pay $3 for that workload. So you can see your 60 cents becomes $3 for that workload. Now it's a very, very simple minimalistic scenario that I have taken. It can extrapolate to any extent based on the amount of work that you are going to do on that particular warehouse, right? So Snowflake makes you spend more for something which is supposed to be free, which is free in most of the platforms and the software as a services that are all available in the market. However, Snowflake has created a differentiator by charging you more or charging you for the notebook runtime that they are offering you. Can you do something about it? I don't think you can do anything about it, rather than bypass using Snowflake notebooks and start using Jupyter notebooks for installed on your local machine.
If you're still there with me, thank you very much for being a lovely audience, and I hope I was able to bring some exciting content before you. Before you log off, please do not forget to hit the like button if you have enjoyed this video. See you in the very next lecture, and bye bye until then.